Good evening, YouTube. I felt compelled to make this video about our Premier Jason Kenney because of a recent argument with a friend, more like a family member. So the family member is a staunch conservative, of course, and he believes in Jason Kenney, let's say like that. That Kenney will lead us back to prosperity. My argument is, as long as Trudeau is leader of this country and as long as the Liberals continue their, let's call it, self-sabotage to Canada, Alberta can never prosper under this very aggressive sabotaging of our province, very deliberate sabotaging of our province. No matter what Kenney thinks he can promise, unless the separation is real, tangible, and factual, Trudeau and Butts will never, ever submit to our demands. I don't think they hold us in any kind of esteem. They hate us, and it's not a joke. Around the country, there has been a tone, a climate, I could say, from certain areas that absolutely hate Alberta, hate what Alberta stands for, are jealous of the, let's call it, the resources that we've been blessed with, and so on and so forth. And there's not much we can do to alter their opinion. Now, of course, I've met many people on my channel from different provinces, and I have to give credit to them because they are actually with us. So there are pockets around the country that are with us, of course. I'm not saying that it's everybody. What I am saying is that Kenney lacks the spine to make things happen. And I fear for the future because Kenney took Alberta in the hopes that Trudeau would essentially fall in the next election. The unpopularity was a good sign. You know, the numbers seemed to be coming together for him statistically, I suppose. And he anticipated that Trudeau would be defeated in the next election. A minority government, and it's not even a true minority. It's nothing like Stephen Harper's minority. That is absolutely a disaster. But Trudeau's minority is actually a relatively strong minority. I believe it's only about 14 votes or less that separate him from achieving everything he wants. And he can lay in bed with the NDP or the Bloc to accomplish his vision. And both, if he wants, it doesn't matter. And whether the Conservatives are the official opposition or not, they still lack a great deal of decision-making power. So getting back to the point, the strategy that Kenney was trying to employ in Alberta was to get things more or less back on track, lower taxes, get rid of the carbon tax, find a way to end equalization. That's what he promised. I think he will fail in that promise, and he'll come short. Here's why. Scheer ultimately failed us. Andrew Scheer is the person I hold most accountable for the failure of the Conservative victory. And if he hadn't been so timid and so, let's call it, goofy in his political conduct, and what I term as insincere, because I find that Scheer let himself down, let Canada down, but most of all he let his party down, because there are several good candidates in the Conservative Party that he could have run with, that he could have promoted them instead of himself, because he's terrible at selling himself. Anyhow, since Scheer is not leader of the country, not prime minister, and the Conservatives aren't holding the balance of power, there's not much that Jason Kenney can do except separation. or the legitimate threat of separation. Let's talk more about that. Many of you know Kenney is a Federalist. It's not something that is concealed or hard to uncover if you really look. You could speak to half a dozen people that know Kenney's tendencies and so on, and they will tell you he's a Federalist. He's for Canada remaining united. He's like the gentleman politics, hoping that Trudeau will be encouraged by negotiation or whatever to eventually give in to some reasonable demands, reasonable requests or pointers that could be more efficiently negotiated as they aren't right now. So little wins here and there. That's what Kenney hopes to achieve. But if he's not careful, Trudeau will make things intolerable for us in Alberta. Not only will he kill our industry, but the severe taxation that's coming, because I heard that in addition to carbon tax, there is going to be another hidden tax that will come in that will be around the amount of 10 cents for every, it's like a second carbon tax essentially. I forget exactly how they plan to implement, but it's coming. It's another tax that will be added on to the carbon tax, hidden, but nevertheless will be there, causing a massive increase in expenses such as food, such as heating, such as driving your car, and so on and so forth. So, my fellow Canadians, especially my fellow Albertans, if you're watching this, you're probably thinking something like, well, we already knew that was going to happen after he was elected, because it's highly probable that the carbon tax will be fully implemented by 2020, or another tax will be added on one way or another. So, but that's simplifying it too much. I heard from a formal Liberal who thought that even the Liberal Party had gone too far with the taxation, with the carbon tax, sabotaging our industry and so forth. He said it had gone too far. But he also had insight because there were discussions, I suppose, in meetings and whatnot, committees and whatnot, in discussing how to implement more incentive to get people away from carbon emissions. So, let me say this. Jason Kenney's only move, to me, logically, I don't claim that my opinion is perfect, but I tell you, from my chair here where I'm sitting, his only move is separation. The way I'm looking at the future with Trudeau and so forth, and the plans that they have for this country, it's going to be way worse than what Obama did to the U.S., if not the same caliber. And if you've done your research, you'll know that Obama sabotaged the U.S. in so many deep ways. It's like a deep wound. There's no level of governance that he's accomplished anything. You can see the trajectory of the U.S. economy, its ability to wage war, protect itself, its ability to keep its citizens off of welfare and working. I mean, you name it. Any subject, any responsibility that Obama held. You talk about an abuse of power. You know, Canada doesn't have to be like this. There's no reason for us to experience a recession right now. The Americans are doing fantastic. And they're exporters of oil. So why are we suffering? And the reason is The self-sabotage of the climate change radicals in government. The climate change religion. And because it's under the guise of compassion for the environment, we swallow it. And we shouldn't. There's nothing wrong with a balance between man and nature and responsibility to the environment. But I'm telling you, it's already gone too far, and too many years already. We've been discussing this, and it becomes even more and more illogical every time I hear the argument. And the fact of the matter is, logic has nothing to do with it anymore. It's only political. And it's only how can we get taxes out of these people that they're willing to accept. And that's how they did it. They solved it. So, many of you in my province, you know, you're acutely aware of the suffering. No matter what status you hold, things are getting tight. Food is more expensive than ever. It will become difficult for you to afford normally what you need to eat. You'll be less inclined to drive because the driving will become more and more expensive. And to heat your house, I mean, these are the basic necessities of life, and they're essentially hitting us as hard as they can where we need to have the minimum requirements for our way of life met. This to me is deeply inhumane and must be answered in kind, which is why Kenney has to take a stand and grow a backbone instead of just talking about nonsense. The longer he talks to pretend he's trying to do something, the more time Trudeau has to discuss and implement more taxes to just destroy us. You know, I have become acutely aware that Canada is simply too divided. That's what Trudeau, if anything, there's a legacy for Trudeau, that's it. That division that he created in this country, that very tangible division, all of you know what I talk about. All you need to do is speak the words climate change or talk about an issue, and that division already exists. It can almost produce a fight or an argument or whatever you want to call it. It will produce a confrontation or some aggressive feedback, let's say, if that issue is turned up. I know, like, whether people will admit it or not, there are certain issues that are taboo in the public sight. They'll say, oh, you're a radical, oh, you're this, you're that, you know. When did we let sentiment become more important than logic? Right? If we cannot have a discussion with it, then it's time to take it to the next level. And to be honest with you, the way that they handle it is very civil. Fantastic, great. You're a gentleman among your people, but you lack the leadership and the power of a real leader. That's why nobody believes in it. I look at Kenney, I say he's a soft guy too. Him and Scheer, like, I mean, these people, I'm sure they're very nice people if you met them on the street, but you need more than that to be a leader. Many of you feel the frustration that I do that Wexit is on the rise, but rising ever so slowly. It's like our prayers will be heard, but 10 years from now. It cannot be. Take a lesson from the Greeks or from the Americans, from Detroit or something like that. It'll be a ghost town in Calgary before long. In fact, one might even argue that it's a ghost town already. I will make a video following this one of the industrial districts that were closed down in Calgary. Essentially what they did is the property taxes and the other taxes that come in, it become unsustainable for them. The business atmosphere become terribly wrong for them. It's no longer logical to do business here. What happens? That area becomes entirely vacant and they build a co-op on it. Right? There's no room for business anymore. But that problem lies ultimately at the federal level. And Kenney can talk his hat off. It won't make a damn bit of difference if he doesn't have any kind of threat of separation there. Okay, if the carbon tax goes through and we don't agree with it, there's got to be something that you can say, if you cross this line, that's it. We will separate. Quebec had it perfect. I don't understand what Kenney is doing. It's nonsense. What does delaying things do for the province? Nothing. And if things get worse than what they are now, I doubt if he's reelected, it's not going to be with the same majority that he had the last election, I tell you that. Many of you feel the frustration that I do. I look at people, I look at people's lives, I see they're struggling hard to get their bills, their basic needs met. Canadian people, it's insulting. A country like this, as great as we are, how far we've gone down for something as stupid as a climate change nonsense. We love the environment. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a point. If we're sabotaging ourselves, how on earth can we look after the environment? Right? What's the cost? How long is it going to take before you people, I don't want to say grow up, but it's so soft. There has to be some kind of power behind you to say, no, that's enough. It's stupidity already. If fully implemented, imagine how our lives will change fundamentally. I could never support such a ludicrous proposition. So for me, I'm with you who want to separate, because as I understand it, Kenney is, as far as I can tell, is playing games, essentially. It's not a game. It's very serious. The negotiations that take place, you're talking about a few $100s away from insolvency for a lot of people in this province. It's ridiculous. Do something. Rather than just talk nonsense. Make something tangible happen. Make a referendum happen. Or talk to the Americans. Put the idea out there. Start to make the negotiations happen. This is what will happen if it should happen, because Trudeau won't care either way, as far as I'm concerned, as long as he gets his taxes out. But Alberta should be strong and free to conduct its business. And we want to share that prosperity with the rest of Canada, but not if you're going to hang us. Not if it's unsustainable, and definitely not if you try to kill the industry in which we're trying to benefit from. Because I'll tell you, oil is not going to go away in 10 years or whatever the climate radicals keep claiming. China is building coal-fired plants like mad, and they'll be producing cars like crazy, and they won't give a damn about the climate change nonsense happening here. I tell you that. 1.6% or 1.5% accounts for all our emissions worldwide. And China is most likely something like 44 to 50. So it's absolutely ludicrous. So I encourage you, my viewers, my fellow Canadians, whomever is watching, comment. Tell me what you think. Vent your anger, because I tell you, you're right to do so. I'm so tired of people saying that Alberta, oh no, you're overreacting. No, we're not. It is getting that bad, and it's terrible in people's lives. They just bear up and they do their best with what they can, and they're rewarded with more scum policy and inhumane nonsense. All for a ludicrous ideal. We are the most responsible country when it comes to protecting the environment. I challenge anybody to say differently. And the fact of the matter is, nowhere else in the world do we have that kind of policy, that kind of compassion that we have here. And now we're saying, no, we didn't do enough. Yes, we did. We did more than our share. And we should make others do the same to try to acclimate the balance. This, for me, is not a necessary recession. This is completely unnecessary with the amount of resources that we have, the wealth that this province generates. There's no need for it. It is a absolute tangible proof that what we're doing in politics is harming what we can do with something valuable, an asset. It's proof that radicalization can harm a free society so deeply, it wounds it. So many people don't want to admit it. I'm sick and tired of hearing it, that petroleum helped to build our way of life. It did. It's the life's blood of this country. I challenge anybody to say differently. You're lying if you think that's not true. The prosperity of Canada was coherent upon Alberta oil, which was Canadian oil, by the way. So, thank you for your time and your attention. I look forward to reading your comments. And subscribe to my channel if you like my content. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.